Why do growing businesses love working in Slack? Let's ask Christy at Ari Bikes.
Running things in Slack saves me so much time.
AI summaries save 97 minutes per week. What say you, Rox from Gosney?
Slack helps us build community, it helps us build connection.
Your partners, vendors and customers all in one place. Take us on home, Ashley from Caraway.
If we didn't have Slack tomorrow, I would explode.
Well, let's not let that happen. Visit slack.com/podcast to get 50% off Slack Business Plus.
What if an appliance emergency didn't have to be? If your appliances suddenly decided they were done, don't stress. Best Buy has you covered with a wide variety of major appliances from trusted brands, in stock and available now. So you don't have to worry about laundry piling up, refilling the fridge, or that big dinner party you're hosting. Because Best Buy has the knowledge and expertise to get you the right appliance for your home. Learn more at bestbuy.com. Best Buy. Imagine that.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is Joe Concha. I am a Fox News contributor. As you probably know, I have a show now on weekdays here on WABC Radio and, hopefully syndicated at some point, the Joe Concha Show. I'm on Sundays as well. The Trump effect is really remarkable. So President Trump hired my friend Jeanine Pirro, Judge Jeanine, as you know her, from Fox and obviously the Five. And now she is like the DA of Washington, D.C., which is really cool because I think she always wanted to get back into that for a while. I mean, TV's great, but once you have a position like that, I'm sure you miss it because you feel like you're making a difference, and she sure is. That's certainly for sure. But when she was hired by Trump, then I got Jeanine's show. It's just, the way the domino worked. And it's weird because now basically there's only 3 people left at Fox that weren't hired by Trump. So we control the whole building. It's quite remarkable. It's Kilmeade, it's me, and it's Kudlow. Like, I think we're the only 3 left now at Fox, right? I'm joking, of course. But Trump has hired several of my friends away. And know what's weird? I could kind of brag to my kids that when a military operation goes down, like it did with Iran and Midnight Hammer, and we take out the nuclear facilities, I'm like, I could text the Secretary of War right now and congratulate him and see how the kids are doing. And that's of course, my old friend Pete Hegseth, who I've stolen every fashion tip that I possibly could from it. It's a well-dressed man. So, imitation is the best form of flattery, Pete. What can I say? So that's kind of cool. Or let's say a flight's delayed. I'm like, I could always text my friend Sean Duffy, of course, who's the Secretary of Transportation. Or when we go to D.C., obviously I could get in touch with Jeanine. I used to be able to say, hey, I could get in touch with the FBI guys and, take care of XYZ for you through Dan Bongino. Now Dan's coming back to radio, I assume. But overall, it's cool having all these connections, within the organization. These are friends of mine, and now they're in these really powerful positions. It's wild. But anyway, Donald Trump has had one hell of a first year. I mean, really, when you think about, I don't really remember Reagan. I was young for that, but I remember he came in 1981 and was shot, only a couple months in, obviously. Hinckley, who's out now, which is kind of weird. That should be kind of like a life in prison thing, but I guess he pleaded insanity enough and isn't a threat to society, and Reagan's dead, so I guess they figure, Jodie Foster's not really doing much these days, so maybe he isn't a threat. But at the same time, I think once you try to kill a president, you probably shouldn't breathe free air, ever. But sure enough, Hinckley is out, and that's that. But anyway, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that Reagan was transformational, obviously, in the 80s in terms of taking down the Soviet Union without firing one shot. I think Star Wars was genius. We never had a defense system that could shoot down Russian ICBMs. We just didn't. But boy, he played a good poker hand there and bluffed it. And they ended up spending half their economy and trying to establish the same thing, except obviously they don't have the scientists and technology that we do. So basically bankrupt themselves. And that was the end of the Soviet Union. So that's obviously Reagan's biggest legacy, but also having a roaring economy during the 80s. And the 80s were just cool. Everybody was happy with the country, it seemed. And that's why Trump won 49 states in 1984. Could have won 50. He very easily could have just campaigned in Minnesota for about 5 minutes because I think Mondale won by less than 5,000 votes in his own state. So if Reagan put any effort into that state, he could have won, but he revealed later that he didn't want to embarrass the guy. So I guess, it's like when the 49ers beat the Broncos in that one Super Bowl, 55-10. They were 55-3 at one point. They let the Broncos score at the end. Okay, maybe give them a little bit of pride, a little bit of solace in that. So Reagan, did a lot of great things, obviously. But Trump, in his first year, despite all these headwinds, and I get that he has the Congress and the Senate in terms of majorities. The Congress, he has a majority of like one vote because Thomas Massie is like, AOC with a beard. Like that's who this guy is. He will oppose Trump on everything. He votes with the squad more than he votes with the Republican Party. Don't tell me he's a conservative. He just fundraises off of it and then plays the victim. That's the Massie way. But that's Congress. All right, one vote majority. And the fact that Speaker Johnson was able to get the big, beautiful bill passed, despite all these different factions within the Republican Party, is utterly remarkable to me that he pulled that off. And they signed it on July 4th because Trump understands optics. Certainly that's for sure. And now, for the people who say, well, I'm not feeling the big, beautiful bill, well, that's because it doesn't come into effect. It's not retroactive. Not until 2026 will you start to see the tax refunds. And boy, they're going to be good for almost everybody. So that's awesome. If you're in the service industry, then no tax on tips. That's pretty awesome. The border, in terms of truly securing it, Trump's rhetoric has secured it, where we have crossings. Let's put it this way. Not one illegal immigrant has been caught and released into the United States in 8 months. That is utterly remarkable. It was tens of thousands per month under Biden. And God knows how many of those people are terrorists, how many of those people are Somalians who are looking to defraud the government. I mean, the fact that people talk about social services being impacted by illegal immigration, and certainly that happened in New York, that's for sure, in Chicago, and Atlanta, and Minneapolis, and Los Angeles, and San Francisco. Sanitation, education, police, you name it, budgets squeezed because we're giving money, free money, to people who shouldn't be here, as opposed to, obviously, taking care of our own citizens. So closing the border, that was such a big deal, and he only did it by rhetoric, but now the big, beautiful bill, more of the wall will actually be built. So in case we do get a Democrat administration and they want to open the borders again, well, it's going to be a lot tougher for illegals to come into the country the way they did under Biden and Harris. So 2026 is looking good. 4.3% GDP, core inflation at 2.5%. The Dow Jones is going to close well above 54,000 within a year. I mean, everything is just skyrocketing at this point. Earnings are great. And all I know is that we were heading towards a recession, we were told, in April of 2025 because of the Trump tariff war. Think of all the billions that have come in as a result of that revenue. That was a huge bet for Trump because if the economy fails, then it would have been a blue wave bigger than 2018. Then obviously he's in impeachment for perpetuity under Speaker Jeffries. And Democrats, quite frankly, the socialist message, if the economy isn't going well, is a pretty easy thing to sell. But instead, now, what is their argument? What are they running on? Besides Trump bad and we're here to save democracy. We're the same party that installed our Democratic nominee in Kamala Harris without one vote from the public, but we're here to save democracy. We took Trump off of state ballots in Maine and Colorado. We filed to do it in 28 states, but we're here to save democracy by literally trying to put our opponent in jail. We're here to save democracy. So since that's not really working at this point, what are Democrats running on? You could say, well, abortion. Well, the abortion thing is faded, right? I mean, in states like Ohio and Kansas, well, those are pretty deep red states, and they voted through referendums to keep abortion legal. And in most states, it is legal. And the abortion rate has actually gone up since Roe v. Wade was struck down. Well, how could that be? Well, because let the states decide and let people decide instead of, a couple of people in robes on the Supreme Court. That's the way the founders envisioned it. So Trump said, all right, leave it up to the states. It's up to the states. And now you can't run on the fear of abortion and hangers being used by women in back alleyways and rogue doctors and all that because it just hasn't happened. We would have heard about it on CNN and MS, whatever it is, right? But we haven't. So without abortion, like they ran on in 2018, and I guess you could keep running on Trump as Hitler, but did Hitler work the drive-through and the fries at McDonald's? I don't think so, right? No, that's just not going to fly. And I guess you could run against, well, Trump is destroying democracy by building a ballroom. I don't know if you've ever been to a state dinner at the White House, but basically it's a bunch of tents attached to the White House where people literally are walking around in grass. This is the United States, and we can't host a decent party. We are the nation of partiers, and we can't do that. So, all right, you want to run on the ballroom thing? Well, that's fine. You want to run on, oh, wow, Trump is acting illegally by extraditing Nicolás Maduro, the most notorious narco-terrorist in the world. You want to run on that? You want to protect Maduro, or you want to say it's illegal? What's illegal? Do we want to talk about international law for a second? Because I'm more than willing to do this. International law does not exist because nothing is enforced. Laws only exist if you can enforce something on the other side. If there's nothing to enforce, then there is no international law. So that's all we hear about this 1 hour war, I guess, that we have with Venezuela. Not much of a war. We had 0 casualties, and at least in that compound, they're reporting close to 100, mostly Cuban security. But what are we talking about here, right? And trust me, Joe Biden had a $25 million bounty on Nicolás Maduro. Do we just forget about that? Was that bounty BS? Probably all for show, right? And now Cuba's next, by the way. Cuba, like Venezuela, used to be like a shining jewel. Cuba used to be Vegas before Vegas. Think about that. My grandparents used to go, because it's easier, right, from New Jersey to fly to Havana. You're there, 3 hours, right? You're on an island, ocean, all that stuff. Vegas, it's nice, but it's a desert, no water. It's the way they built it up these days. It's plastic almost, but Havana, that was the original Vegas. It can be that again. And Cuba is dangling by a thread, and if they lose their Venezuelan support, bye-bye Cuba in terms of being a communist country, no question about it. And by the way, Venezuelan exports, 70%, we're talking oil, have gone to China. All to China. Boy, that's interesting. And most of the rest to Iran and Russia. That's got to be freed up to the world. We're talking billions of reserves. And Trump, look, he's unapologetic about this. He's like, you know what? Yeah, we're understanding that the oil's here. We're not just going to let them keep it and run it the way they think it should be done. This should be done in a way where the oil companies, they all go in there, they rebuild all these refineries, and then this is distributed the right way and not just to 3 countries that happen to hate us, by the way. So we are here to control the hemisphere, both of them. That's what the United States role is. And Maduro, by the way, had a 6-year indictment, criminal grand jury indictment, to be arrested, and then finally somebody has done it after all this tough talk from all these Republican and Democratic presidents before, and now suddenly we're hearing that this is a really, really bad thing. And by the way, Delta Force, bravo, to go into that compound the way it was fortified in the middle of the night when they knew we were coming, and not to have one casualty and get the primary goal or goals, if you want to include Mrs. Maduro, and bring them back to the United States, and now here they are being arraigned in New York. Incredible. It's like that scene in Dark Knight where Batman has to go into like Hong Kong and China won't, they're not going to give up somebody who's one of their own. Batman was told, and screw that. He went in, got the guy anyway, and brought it back to the United States and arrested him. Same thing, basically. So Trump is basically Batman now at this point. Anyway, this is Joe Concha. This is Rita Cosby show, which is awesome. I'm filling in tonight because I hosted my show for the first time, weekday show, 9 o'clock. I figured, why not? 2 hours. Rita is on a beach earning 20%. So let's keep the party going. Please do stick around. I am Joe Concha, and we're going to have a lot of fun with Jonathan Gilliam. That's next.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now. You call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time, 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.
It's the Rita Cosby Show.
And welcome back, everybody. Joe Concha filling in for Rita Cosby. Again, my new show, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll go from 9 to 10 Monday through Friday, and then I'm on Sundays as well because it's a labor of love. What can I say? I'll be on 11 o'clock. That's 11 a.m. on WABC and wherever you listen to Red Apple audio networks. Obviously, you can catch me on Fox News, morning news, and night as well. And I have columns for the Washington Examiner and also working on my new book for HarperCollins. Wow. I think I have like 8 jobs. This is awesome. But again, I don't feel like I'm working. It's really an odd thing. But that's the key, right? I tell my son, like, if you don't feel like you're working and they're willing to pay you for it, you're like 90% home in life, right? Not 90. We'll call it 50. The other 50 is if you have a loving family. Like I do. I have 2 kids, great wife, and let's see, 2 dogs, Teddy and Max, and 5 fish. I had 5 fish. We lost 1. Couldn't tell the kids, so I kind of replaced. They're asleep now, so they won't know. So I replaced the one glow green fish with another today, and they fed him and didn't notice a thing. I feel kind of guilty. I probably should say something, but I don't know. That could be kind of traumatic, right? What can I say? Anyway, here's what I want to say about. Hopefully, you're sitting down. Like if you're driving, obviously you're sitting down. But I couldn't believe I heard this on The View today, of all places. The View, where Ana Navarro, who is the Republican strategist on there, I don't know who she was a strategist for. She is vehemently anti-Trump. She has hosted fundraisers for Joe Biden before. I mean, this is obviously not a Republican, but The View, they bend the rules a little bit, as in like needing a chiropractor bending the rules a lot. Who are we kidding? Anyway, here is Navarro on The View, actually not quite praising Trump. She doesn't say Trump, but she does praise Trump's actions in taking out Maduro out of his palace and into a courtroom into New York. This is cut number 6. Go.
Your question, who voted for this? The people in South Florida, the Venezuelan community, the Cuban American community, the Nicaraguan American community voted for this. And for us, this is a very, very happy day when we see a dictator who has been part of oppressing and abusing the Venezuelan people for 25 years. When we see him in handcuffs and held to some sort of accountability, it brought me into tears. It brought me great joy.
Now, the person going, in the background, that was Sunny Hostin, who asked her the question, who voted for this? Well, basically almost everybody, right? I can't believe the Democrats are making this argument that this is something that is a bad thing. Just like Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Maryland man, the loving father, the also MS-13 gangbanger who happened to beat his wife and was a human trafficker. They supported him too. They're on the wrong side. They swing at every bad pitch, even here. Like Trump could cure cancer tomorrow. And Democrats would say, but what about the funeral parlor industry? I mean, aren't they going to suffer? Shouldn't we be thinking about them? How about Big Pharma and all the drugs that they use to treat cancer patients in terms of chemotherapy and radiation? What's going to happen to them? Like literally, that's what would happen. Let's put it this way. Donald Trump could sign an executive order against pineapple on pizza. And they would say, pineapple on pizza is a good thing. No, it ain't. You can't support everything that Donald Trump is against, and you can't be against everything that Donald Trump is for. Bottom line. This is the Rita Cosby Show. Joe Concha filling in. Back with more in just a moment.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Live CBS Sunday. Hollywood's biggest party is now bigger than ever.
Perfect. No notes.
The Golden Globes, with more stars, more glamour, more chaos, and more host Nikki Glazer.
We're gonna laugh at the celebrities that can take it and completely ignore the ones who can't. I'm just kidding. They're not safe either.
The Golden Globes, live CBS Sunday, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, and streaming on Paramount Plus.
Rita Cosby is on.
Of course, Jonathan Gilliam. I first person I thought of to have on tonight, just because, well, I mean, this raid on this compound in Venezuela, in Caracas, Cuban security forces heavily fortified. They know we're coming, obviously. We got carriers right off the coast. Jonathan, I just want to get your thoughts on what some are saying may have been even more complex than the raid on bin Laden in Islamabad. Do you agree with that? I mean, it's hard to tell. We weren't there in either one, of course, but this was one hell of a mission, and not to have any U.S. casualties is utterly remarkable.
I think the big difference in this versus the bin Laden raid is that, like you just said, we had this massive buildup. It was reported for months that the buildup was happening. And then they were doing, show of force flights off the coast. So we're tracking Maduro's plane. I mean, telling him that it wasn't going to end well for him if he didn't cooperate. So it was no secret that something could potentially happen. And when you transpose or contrast that to the bin Laden raid, that was done with much fewer assets. They didn't know that we had found bin Laden. Nobody knew that we were coming in there. So I wouldn't say that one was more difficult than the other. It's just that the one off in Venezuela just involved a tremendous amount of assets. And you're looking at, multiple branches of the military. You're looking at the coordination similar to the bombing in Iran, where everything had to happen at the right time, and it just shows how far we've come, even since the bin Laden raid, and since, for instance, the beginning of Iraq and Afghanistan, how far our military has come since then. And so I think what is being displayed in these things that President Trump has done is that, one, he's a man of action, and two, the capabilities that we have far surpass the majority of countries in the world and in history. And when you look at somebody like Maduro, who's a psychopathic narcissist, like many of these leaders in Central South America, he believed that he's golden, that nothing's going to touch him. And as you can see, same thing with Iran. These people live in a fantasy world. They're paper tigers, and they really do not understand our capabilities.
And we're talking to Jonathan Gilliam, obviously a Navy SEAL, knows this stuff. Did you ever embark on a mission where you didn't – that's probably a question, obviously, coming from a non-military guy, but where you weren't sure whether you would come back? Like, you're like, boy, I mean, this could be risky. I don't want you to share too many details, but I would imagine that there was something like this where I'm sure a lot of these men and women that were involved in this were thinking, wow, this is unknown territory, even though from what I've read – they actually been training for this for months on a compound that literally they were able to build something that was an exact replica right down to the safe room, which is remarkable. Right. They had that kind of intelligence.
Well, that's the thing. See, I think it's different than it was, in Vietnam, for instance, or even through the first Gulf War, where, when we look at things, when you're active in these types of groups, these tier one assets, or the non-tier one assets, these ground operational units, and the pilots that are out there, and the people that are in the plane, like the helicopters, the crewmen that are in the planes. We don't look at it as, I may not come back from this. I don't know anybody who really, I know I've heard people say that we knew this might be a suicide mission, but we don't typically take on suicide missions. And nobody really thinks like that in the moment. And so sure. It's the same. I'll put it to you this way, Joe, so people can understand it is a firefighter and a group of firefighters, when they go for their 24-hour or 48-hour shift, they don't show up there thinking this might be my last day. They're a very professionally trained group. They have standard operating procedures, and they mitigate those circumstances by training and really sticking with those standards. And what happens when things get fluid, they handle it very well. And so when you look at the military and especially the special forces aspect of it, that's the way we think. We think like a professional, like a firefighter or a police officer. And so we standardize as much of what we can, and then we contemplate the contingencies of things that could go wrong. And when things occur, we're so adept at working in the fluid situation that we just handle it, and we apply our knowledge. And so what you end up seeing is that we don't go in there to fail. We go in there to succeed. And I think that's a big difference between us and others, is that other nations and other people may not exactly understand what they're going to do in a fluid situation. We fully plan for those things. And so when they go in and hit a place like this, with that training, with the planning, with the communication, which is a huge part of all this, what you end up seeing are these just almost flawless operations that have been rehearsed and standardized to the point where we're able to literally go in there and pinpoint what we want without the fear resonating in you that I may not come back.
It's all about the job, and we're talking to Navy SEAL Jonathan Gilliam. You were in Venezuela, I believe, on a protection detail about a decade ago.
Yeah.
What did you see in that? I know things probably have gotten worse since then, but this was about, narco-terrorism, of course, killing scores, thousands upon thousands of Americans as far as drugs coming into this country, more than some wars themselves that U.S. service members have fought in. And obviously Maduro had a criminal grand jury indictment against him for the past 6 years, a bounty by the Biden administration for $25 million. So all of that's justified. But this is a country that more and more was influenced by the Chinese and Russians, and obviously 70% of Venezuelan oil exports were going to China. There's a reason for this quid pro quo. But what did you see when you were there on security detail?
So I was down there, and people want to see part of the detail. Of course, it's dramatized because we were protecting Vice Media, and they were doing a story on military contractors, but we're actually the ones that were down there protecting them. And as soon as they found out that I was a former FBI agent, they detained us and held us, and it was a very tense situation for several hours. And it was you could see the danger was very palatable at that point. But where we were going and the places that we went through and stopped and videoed were as dangerous as you could ever imagine. There were barrios that they have 25 murders a week in some of these places. The whole country has upwards of 25,000 or more murders a year. Jeez. Most of them go unsolved. And so what was striking to me was two things. One, it was the danger. It was everywhere. And then the other thing was when we did go to a place that was high end, there was I don't know who the guy was, but there was a professional baseball player from Venezuela that played in the major league here in the United States. He was at a restaurant, and all these rich and wealthy people were there. And then when I walked out to escort the guys back to the hotel, literally around the block was 2,000 tents that were set up with people that were protesting for these rights. And we saw cops lining up, and the next day we found out they went in and murdered I don't know how many hundreds of these people. Jeez. Killed them. And then, we ended up leaving a couple days later. But what I found out when I came back to the United States and talking to people that were from Venezuela and left, they said lots of those people, many of those people used to be middle class. And Chavez and then Maduro after him came in and drove that country straight into the ground. And it's the slow war. It's the slow death that most people don't realize that socialism/communism, that's what happens. They come in and they crush a citizenry because they don't care about them. They just the rich get richer, and the poor, even the middle class, get desperate. And so that's what occurred in Venezuela.
Yeah, and we saw that, and we're talking to Jonathan Gilliam, Navy SEAL. In Poland, for example, the Soviets came in, and then obviously communism took over, and Poland was a poor country. Then Poland, Eastern Bloc, gets liberated, and now Poland's economy under capitalism is as big as Japan's. I mean, it's just amazing. Like, socialism never works. Yet here in New York City, a socialist who is demanding that Maduro be released and be taken back to his country, and that's Zoran Mandani. New Yorkers voted for that. And are you still in New York? I remember when I talked to you way back when you lived here. Are you still here in the city, or did you escape finally?
I escaped. I'm way away from there. And it's unbelievable watching. I saw what was happening. It started with Bloomberg, and then when de Blasio got in there, it got worse and worse. COVID, just like Central South America, it followed the same timeline. COVID happened, and just these socialists were able to use that to get themselves into these positions through promises. So now what you see is Colombia, for instance, down in South America, was really on the road to like Poland, going from, having narco terrorists and all these communists, and it worked its way out of that And then COVID happened, and the people were so desperate they elected the person that promised them the most. And now look what they have. They're led by a socialist. So New York is the same way. And it's easy to convince uneducated people. And then why I mean uneducated, I'm not talking about they don't have college degrees, but I'm talking about people who just don't look at reality. It's easy to convince those people if you make people desperate, and then you basically cause the problem, and then you offer a solution, and then you handle the outcome. That's what the socialist game is, and that's what's occurring.
Especially when free stuff is offered up. Like, wow, that sounds good. Yeah, I get free busing to go to work and free childcare, and it's Oprah, right? Like, you get free this, you get free that. Exactly. But then no one talks about, hey, how are you going to pay for it? I think that one thing that a lot of young people in New York, especially Brooklyn, voted for Bendani because they weren't even alive, which is weird to think about, for 9/11, right? Because if you're 23 years old, you weren't around for 9/11, so you don't know about that. You obviously didn't know about communism, the Soviet Union of the 1980s, 70s, 60s, and before that. So I guess they don't know better because they didn't live it.
Yeah, and they don't look at statistics. I mean, it's crazy because they look at on the phone with everything else, but
that's true.
They seem to skip over the fact that communism. I mean, it's hard to differentiate between socialism and communism. It's one's light and one's a gateway drug to the other. But they don't look at the numbers. How many people? How many millions? Hundreds of millions of people have been killed by socialism and communism, and yet they will look at a fascist like Hitler, and they know those numbers, but they won't look at the reality when it comes to communism and the fact that Hitler himself was a democratic socialist. So they don't look at those things either. But it's this is what socialism preys upon, and I think it's interesting important for people to realize that Venezuela. You hear all these social media, quote unquote, influencers giving reason to hate Trump for this or that, and some are conservative now that are saying he's wrong for doing this or that, but they don't look at the totality of the circumstances. And Venezuela, on so many levels, was about oil, of course. That people don't realize how much oil they produce and who was benefiting from it, our enemies. They don't realize that when we say that Maduro was a drug dealer leading a cartel, they don't realize how much drugs were coming out of there and how much it's infected our country and the world. But they also don't realize that this region is now weaker because nobody took care of handling the influence of China, Russia, and Iran. And most of that has come straight through Venezuela and now is spreading because these other countries have become socialist-minded. And so now the door which they all walked through was Venezuela. And because Venezuela had the oil and the money. And so the influence grew. And now it's spreading around this region. And that's one of the major reasons why President Trump, I believe, went in and did this.
Yeah, and justified completely in doing so. I don't want to hear about international law anymore because unless international law has things you can enforce off of it, it doesn't exist. It's laughable, and that's what Democrats are hanging their hat on at this point. Jonathan, I know you got things to do on this late hour on a Monday night, so I really appreciate you joining us on late notice, and we'll have you back again soon, my friend.
You got it, my brother. Take care and be safe, and God bless President Trump and all he's doing.
That's the man right there. I've known Jonathan. I used to interview him for years. Well, not for years necessarily, but he was on my show a lot. I had a show on Newsmax. People kind of forget that because not a lot of people watched at the time. It was new, Newsmax. I'm not busting Newsmax chops, but at the time it was new. It wasn't in a lot of homes, but we did a good show, and Jonathan was a big part of it because, again, I like authentic people on my shows. I don't like people who put on an act or yell for no reason or get all their panties in a twist over things that you could tell they're basically doing performance art like a Don Lemon. We don't like that, and Jonathan Gilliam is the real deal. Anyway, this is Joe Concha filling in for Rita Cosby, The Rita Cosby Show. We wrap this puppy up in just a moment.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. This is The Rita Cosby Show.
Welcome back, everybody. Oh, we've left 70s rock. We now are in the 90s. I'm going to say this is 1993. This came out. Stone Temple Pilots. Thank you, Tony, or whoever's deciding on the music here tonight. Appreciate it. 93. Thank you. See, Tone, I know my music. Very good. Should know the name of that song, of course. All right, it's going to come to me. Don't worry. Don't tell me, Tony. All right, it's going to hit me in the next 4 minutes while this show. Crush, right? Plush. Not Plush. Yes, right. Okay. I knew it was Crush or Plush. Okay. Anyway, 3 people out there are like, yeah, it was Plush. Well, STP was an excellent band, but again, short shelf life. Only a couple of years. Should have been bigger, like Guns N' Roses. Could have been one of the all-time greats, but Axl was kind of screwed up. These are the things you talk about at, I guess, 10:55 on a Monday night. All right, let's go to President Trump. The man, unbelievably, and I've learned this through my sources, has been taking some Spanish in anticipation of this Maduro raid. Obviously, he wants to speak to the Venezuelan people. Trump telling reporters over the weekend that the United States will run Venezuela. Marco Rubio now has more jobs than me. I think he's at 9 now at this point. So perhaps we have President Rubio, at least, not exactly permanent President Rubio, but he'll help run things down in Venezuela to get that country back to, I guess, eventually holding, free and just elections. Obviously, Maduro lost his last election by a landslide and still declared himself the victory. That's why the European Union, even Joe Biden, did not recognize him as a legitimate leader, yet Democrats are saying, like, boy, you attacked a sovereign country and you extradited a legitimately elected leader. No, not quite. It's amazing what they'll defend, Democrats. Anyway, here is Trump. His Spanish isn't perfect, all right? I'm Spanish. My Spanish isn't perfect. Far from it, believe me. You no say. But here's Trump at least trying to appeal to the Venezuelan people by trying his best Spanish. Just as cut 3 go.
Hola, amigos. Yo soy su nuevo presidente.
Not bad.
El señor Donald J. Trumpo. Your ex-presidente, el señor Maduro, is no longer your presidente. He kept talking, around, though, and he ultimately found out, though. Anyway, we're going to make Venezuela grande again. Mucho grande. El bigger y el better than ever before. We're going to drill, baby drill. We're going to have a big, beautiful fiesta, all the tacos you want. Mucho mariachi, sexy mamacitas, and delicious margaritas. And President Trump is going to be el DJ, okay? Muchas gracias, muchachos. Y let's make el Venezuela grande again. Arriba el Venezuela, amigos.
Grande's big, right? I think, make Venezuela excelente again. I'm not sure what great is in Spanish. See, I told you I'm not very good at this, but yeah, make Venezuela big again. All right, grande again. All right, that could fit. And the margaritas and the bonita muchachas. I mean, this is all good things. So excellent effort by the president. Again, Melania could speak 5 languages? Pretty remarkable. Anyway, boy, did we dodge a Scud missile. Tim Walz, as you may have heard earlier in the show or on my show from 9 to 10, is not running for a third term for Minnesota governor. Probably has to lawyer up after billions of dollars was stolen under his nose in his state by the Somalian communities to feed hungry people and open autism centers that did not exist, and no hungry kids were fed. Anyway, Glenn Walz, let's play that real quick, Tony. Cut 5, go. Cut 5, Tone? You're not going to get
You should be with me and practice with me. What are we going to do? We're going to turn the page. Oh, pretty good. Do it again. We're going to turn the page.
Turn the page.
And we're going to turn the page.
Oh, that's Gwen Walz, who could have been the First Lady of the United States. That is not going to happen anymore. Rita Cosby Show. See you tomorrow night. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Rita Cosby Show. You can hear The Rita Cosby Show weeknights at 10 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?